What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm D.Knight, and let's start off Season 4.
Cause it's game time and I'm ready. Game time and I'm ready. Yeah, it's game time and I'm ready. Game time and I'm ready. Can't stop my hustle. No, you can't stop my shine. I ain't come to make no friends. I just came to get what's mine.
Welcome back to the Dolphins franchise. So last year, we just could not get it done. We couldn't get the division title. We didn't make the playoffs. So we did make a few changes. But what we're going to be doing in this episode is we are going to do a team preview. And then we're going to get through the preseason and see where we stand. There are going to be a lot of cuts made. There might even be a lot of cuts to actually sign some better backups. We will have to see. But for a team that was 28th in offense and 16th in defense with a very susceptible pass defense, we need to figure things out, and hopefully this is the season that we can finally do it. So taking a look at the team as we stand, we do have a 77 overall offense, which we have not too many new faces on here. We did kind of shore up the wide receivers a little bit. We got a superstar running back in Lindsey, aka Star, but I think he's a superstar. We also added Connor Williams as well on our offensive line. And then for the defense, which is 81 overall, we decided to add Jair Alexander to kind of help out our cornerbacks, even though we had Mike Hilton, but now Mike Hilton's going to slide into the slot. And we still have Xavier McKinney starting at strong safety, so hopefully he's able to develop a little bit more. We did switch Christian Wilkins over to right end and Chase Young over to left end. So we'll have to see how our defensive line, especially with Lorenzo Neal up the middle, is able to do, but we're actually a 79 overall team, which is a little bit of a bump up from what we had last year, but we have a lot of young players. There's not really going to be much regression with this team currently. So starting here with the quarterbacks, we have Rookie of the Year Trevor Lawrence starting, Tyree Jackson second, and Anthony Brown in the third spot. So starting at quarterback, we have one-year pro Trevor Lawrence, 6'6", 230-pounder out of Clemson, 83 overall. He didn't have the greatest first year, but still ended up bringing him the Rookie of the Year hardware. He had an 88.8 rating, 4,247 yards, 17 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. If he can cut down on the interceptions, this is going to be a guy that's going to be good for a long time. Backing him up is third-year pro Tyree Jackson, 6'7", 249-pounder out of Buffalo. Did not get any playing time, and we signed him right before week 1 to be our backup, 66 overall. This guy is a scrambler archetype. He's actually could possibly be a very, very good quarterback in the future. I'm glad to have him as a backup just in case anything happens to Trevor Lawrence. And then our developmental quarterback is one-year pro Anthony Brown, 6'2", 220-pound out of Boston College, 53 overall. But in the preseason, he actually wasn't too bad with the 86.8 rating, 458 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's definitely somebody that needs a lot of development, but hopefully he's able to continue to push and possibly be a backup in the future. At halfback, we decided to spend a little bit of money and we grabbed Philip Lindsay as our number 1 running back. We have Jatarvius Whitlow at number 2, Anthony McFarland Jr. at number 3, and one of our practice squad members that we picked up during midseason, A.J. Dillon at number 4. So starter Philip Lindsay, the 4-year pro out of Colorado, 86 overall. He is a very good running back. He didn't have the best year last year. He rushed for 778 yards and 12 touchdowns, and then caught 15 passes for 255 yards and a score outside. I'm kind of hoping that we're able to use him a little bit better than Denver did, but we need to upgrade at halfback. That was just necessary. At the number 2 spot is one-year pro Jatarvius Whitlow, 74 overall. This guy kind of was in and out of the starting lineup. I wasn't impressed all the time, but he did show glimpses of brilliance as he rushed for 551 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then also caught 40 passes for 247 yards. This guy could be something great. He just needs to continue to develop. At the number 3 spot is 2-year pro Anthony McFarland Jr., or AMJ for short. This guy I had high hopes for. He just continuously got hurt, but he did end up rushing for 361 yards, 3 touchdowns, and then also caught 18 passes for 96. So he wasn't terrible, but he's just got to be able to stay healthy. At the number 4 spot, and possibly our power back going forward, is 2-year pro AJ Dillon. 71 overall. He didn't have any stats. We picked him up about midway through the season. I have pretty high hopes for this guy. Hopefully he's able to contribute and maybe push Trey Ragas a little bit for the power back spot. And speaking of Trey Ragas, the 2-year pro out of UL Lafayette, this guy always continues to impress me. I wish his overall was a little bit better. But on the year, he had 167 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then also caught 16 passes for 85 yards. He had little limited action, but I still believe in this guy. He's probably still going to be around other than AJ Dillon. And a developmental piece, halfback Patrick Taylor Jr., the 2-year pro out of Memphis. He looked pretty sharp in the preseason last year. He had 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. But this is the guy that really kind of needs to make the team, because if he doesn't, practice squad eligibility has run out, so he might find himself as a free agent. And another developmental piece is rookie halfback Deontay Swain, 64 overall, 6 foot, 200 pound, out of Grand Valley State. That's in Division II if you guys don't know. But this guy was an absolute monster down there. 1,009 yards, 7 touchdowns, 18 catches, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns as well through the air. And that's actually where he needs to kind of progress a little bit, is in the catching department. He's got good speed, good ball carrier vision. I'm kind of excited to see what he does in preseason. And then we have preseason hero halfback Patrick Laird, the 3-year pro out of California. He had 118 yards, a touchdown, 9 catches, 31 yards in the preseason. He continues to look really good in the preseason. Kind of afraid to start him with the overall, but hopefully he's able to continue to get time. Again, practice squad eligibility has run out for him as well. And then at fullback, we have 3-time Pro Bowler Chandler Cox, the 3-year pro out of Auburn. Just 68 overall. He didn't really have any stats. He had 1 catch for 3 yards, but it's really his blocking that has really excited me about him. I mean, he's always out in front and just putting people on their back. At wide receiver, we did make a few changes. Hopefully we're able to get some weapons downfield for Trevor Lawrence. We have Devontae Parker as the number 1, Kiki Cootie, free agent, signing at number 2. Another free agent signing at number 3, DJ Shark Jr., who lit us up last year. Adrian Hardy at number 4, AGG at number 5, and Justin Jefferson at number 6. So our number 1 wide receiver, Devontae Parker, the 7-year pro out of Louisville. This guy is just exciting. He had 79 catches, 1,258 yards, and 3 touchdowns. If his touchdowns go up a little bit more, he could make a difference in being a possibly great wide receiver. Hopefully this is the year that it happens. Lining up next to him is 4-year pro Kiki Cootie out of Texas Tech. We were able to grab this guy from the Texans. He really didn't have much stats. I don't know exactly what was happening with the Texans exactly. I mean, they were a very good team, but he had 13 catches, 153 yards, 4 touchdowns. That would have led our team, so hopefully he's able to do that as well, but this time in a little bit more playing time. At the number 3 spot is 4-year pro DJ Shark Jr. He's 6'4". That's what impresses me the most and is a deep threat. He tore us up last year, but for the whole season, he had 59 catches, 668 yards, and 4 touchdowns. His speed is great. His height is great. I'm really excited to see how this guy plays. Returning as our slot wide receiver, 2-year pro Adrian Hardy out of Louisiana Tech. Nothing too crazy here. All he did was make plays. He had 34 catches, 399 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Very exciting year for him as it was his first year really getting playing time. And a guy that I really need to get on the field but hasn't really been producing is Antonio Gandy Golden, the 2-year pro, 6'4" out of Liberty. I don't really know exactly what's going on with him. Last year he only had 2 catches for 12 yards and he actually played a decent amount of downs. So hopefully he's able to kind of continue to progress and get better. One of our surprises last year at wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, will also back them up, the 2-year pro out of LSU. This guy was flying everywhere. He had 9 catches for 205 yards and 3 touchdowns, all 3 over 50 plus yards. That is phenomenal. Another guy that kind of caught my attention last year in preseason and a little bit of regular season that he got to play, but 2-year pro Damon Hazelton out of Virginia Tech. I really like this guy. He had 3 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown. He might end up making the team if he has a really good preseason. Kind of excited to see how he does. And then a developmental wide receiver, we have rookie Chance Smith out of UTEP. We ended up picking him in the 4th round, but last year he had some really good stats. 78 catches, 1,124 yards, 8 touchdowns. This guy's got some speed. The height isn't quite there, but maybe he's able to kind of slide into the slot role. At tight end, we are pretty much set with Pro Bowler Mike Gesicki. Backing him up is going to be Octavius Cooley and Trey McKitty. So our man Mike Gesicki here, the 4-year pro out of Penn State. I love everything about this Pro Bowler. He had 98 catches, 1,080 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Do want to find him a little bit more in the red zone. That 6'6" frame should come in handy. Backing him up and getting some more play time is 2-year pro Octavius Cooley out of Ole Miss. I like everything that I see from this guy. He had 8 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown, but he's more of a blocker, so as a number 2, maybe he gets in there and puts some people on their butt and helps out our run game. At the 3rd tight end position is 1-year pro Trey McKitty out of Florida State. Again, everything that I saw from this guy, I was very impressed with. He had 3 catches, 19 yards in the preseason. Didn't really get any playing time in the regular season, but with Durham Smythe gone, he's going to get his opportunity. And then a developmental tight end, we have rookie Chandler Gore out of Idaho State. We ended up taking him in the 4th round, but he had 52 catches, 610 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Again, FCS level is a little bit different than the NFL. We'll see how it translates. And then one last developmental tight end, we have rookie Jalen Teague out of Penn State. Just kind of a burner at the tight end position. He had a great combine. Last year for Penn State, he had 28 catches, 391 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We selected him in the 3rd round. I'm kind of excited to see if that speed translates to anything, but I doubt he will make the team this year. So our offensive line has kind of been a concern each and every year, but I think we're starting to solidify that thanks to some good draft pieces and some really good developmental guys. Starting at left tackle is going to be Penei Sewell. At left guard, we're going to have Joe Thuney. And then at center, Ben Jones. Right guard is going to be Connor Williams. And then at right tackle, we're going to have Darren Paulo. Starting on the left side is 1-year pro Penei Sewell out of Oregon. He showed glimpses of greatness, and that is all I can ask for. Just an absolute grinder. He ended up giving up 6 sacks, but for a rookie, not too bad. I will take it, and hopefully he's able to continue to get better and really solidify our line. At right tackle, we have 2-year pro Darren Paulo. Another guy that's a little bit on the struggle bus part. He just can't seem to figure out how to stop those ends or not. But he gave up 8 sacks last year, which hasn't really contributed to anything. He's got a little bit of heat coming up with our Sidney Patrick draft selection, though. And speaking of our 3rd round pick, rookie Sidney Patrick out of USF. This guy looks like an absolute stud. He did give up 7 sacks last year at UCF, but I love his attributes, his statistics. I mean, he might end up starting over Paulo. We will have to see. Backing up those guys is going to be rookie Amani Dillon, the 22-year-old out of BYU. He looks like an absolute monster. I'm really hoping he continues to progress, but he's probably going to be a really good backup. He gave up 1 sack last year. That's it. 1. And behind him on the depth chart is rookie right tackle Joey Zahn out of North Dakota State. You know how I love my FCS guys. Here is another one for us. He did end up giving 8 sacks last year, but hopefully that really is nothing translating over to the NFL. Hopefully he's able to really put in a good preseason for us. And then another offensive lineman that we grabbed in the 6th round is rookie Leon Castille. 6'8", 325-pounder out of Duke. I liked everything that I saw with him. He did give up 7 sacks, which isn't the best. But again, I mean, college football and its throw-heavy area, it leads to a little bit more. But he's got good core stats, so hopefully he's able to contribute and look good during the preseason. And then starting at left guard, we have veteran Joe Thuney, 6-year pro out of NC State. Just another piece in our puzzle that has continuously contributed well. I don't really see us giving up on him anytime soon, even with the talent behind him. He gave up 3 sacks last year. I love this guy. He's not going anywhere. And then starting on the right side is going to be Connor Williams, the 4-year pro out of Texas. We nabbed him away from the Cowboys, so we will continue to try to build this offensive line and really give our running game and our passing game just a little bit of an advantage. Backing them up is going to be 10-year vet Ron Leary out of Memphis. We snug him away from the Broncos. He has really good stats, but he's getting up there in age, but we needed somebody to continuously back up our guards. He gave up 1 sack last year. Hopefully he's able to continue to do that if any injuries do happen. But a guy that's going to continue for backup snaps is left guard Trey Smith, 6'6", 1-year pro out of Tennessee. I like everything that I see from this guy. Hopefully he's able to continue to contribute. He ended up giving up 2 sacks during the preseason, so maybe he's the monster that we're missing. And then we have former starter guard John Simpson. He's going to be vying for those backup reps. 2-year pro out of Clemson. Again, he had just a horrible first season with us, but last year during the preseason didn't give up any sacks, so hopefully he's able to get some play time and hopefully able to push the envelope a little bit more for us. And then we also have 3rd round pick rookie Jeremy Shade, 6'4", 321-pound out of Ole Miss. Agile archetype. I'm really excited about this guy. He gave up 4 sacks last year. Hopefully he's able to continue to push the envelope and hopefully he's able to kind of dominate. We will have to see. And then we also picked up another good guard in the 4th round, Lucas Lloyd, 6'6", 340-pounder out of Stanford. Just another absolute monster. He ended up giving up 6 sacks, but I love everything about these 70 overall linemen. I will take them every time. And then we also have 6th round pick Joseph Collins out of Wake Forest. Just another big, beefy guy at 6'4", 331 pounds. He's probably going to be a little bit of a developmental piece for us, but I'm kind of excited to see what he does in the preseason. And then we have 3-year vet Michael Dieter still on the roster. Again, just not a guy that I plan on probably even playing in the preseason. He's probably just going to be released, but he gave up 4 sacks last year in the preseason. If he gets playing time, hopefully he's able to improve on that. And then starting at center is 10-year vet Ben Jones, 6'3", 308-pound out of Georgia. He didn't really necessarily impress me that much, but maybe it's his intangibles that are going to make the difference for us. He ended up giving up 7 sacks at the center position. Not exactly what we're looking for. Backing him up is 1-year pro Josh Myers out of Ohio State. Another guy that can really probably do the job, but we're kind of breaking him in slowly. He ended up giving up 2 sacks last year during the preseason, which isn't necessarily great. And then the 3rd center we have on our roster is 1-year pro Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. This guy actually didn't give up any sacks during the preseason, and I actually really like his core stats, but he might actually end up being better in the guard or tackle position. We will have to see. Now let's switch over to the defense and see who we got. Starting at left end, we are going to switch Chase Young over to that position from his right end position. At right end, we're going to move Christian Wilkins outside from defensive tackle. And at defensive tackle, Lorenzo Neal will take over, clogging up the middle. So starting at left end is 2-year pro Chase Young out of Ohio State. Another guy that's kind of dominant. We wanted to switch him over to left end. That's a little bit more of a rushing piece for him. Last year he had 8.5 sacks, 14 TFLs, and 49 tackles. He looked awfully good. Hopefully he's able to be really good on the left side as well. At right end, we are going to move defensive tackle Christian Wilkins, the 3-year pro but 2-time Pro Bowler. Last year he was phenomenal. 11 sacks, 14 TFLs, 72 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. Kind of excited to see what he does on the right end side. At defensive tackle, Lorenzo Neal is going to get his chance, the 2-year pro out of Purdue. In the limited time that he was playing, he was phenomenal. 4 sacks, 13 TFLs, and 38 tackles. Kind of excited to see what he does when he gets more snaps. Backing up a defensive end is going to be Jacki Polite, the 3-year pro out of Florida. Another guy that we kind of picked up midway through the season. I'm kind of excited to see how he plays in the preseason. But if he doesn't perform, then I'm probably going to get Morgan Fox back. And also fighting for those defensive end reps as a backup is going to be rookie Mike Wright out of Temple. We ended up selecting him in the 3rd round last year. He had 4.5 sacks, 15 TFLs, 49 tackles, and a fumble recovery. Kind of excited to see what he can put together, and hopefully he's a backup for years to come. And then also backing up is Sean Foote, the rookie out of Tulane. This guy we grabbed in the 7th round. He had 4.5 sacks, 14 TFLs, 61 tackles, a forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries for Tulane. So I'm kind of excited to see what he does going into the NFL. And then at number 2 defensive tackle position is going to be 2-year pro Ray Lima out of Iowa State. A guy that kind of continues to impress me during the preseason, but just wasn't able to get any reps. He's going to now. He had 1.5 sacks and 3 tackles in the preseason. Hopefully he's able to really move up on those statistical categories. And backing them up is going to be 2-year pro Bravion Roy out of Baylor. Another guy that just really wasn't getting any reps, but last year in preseason he had 1 sack and 2 tackles. Hopefully he's able to contribute and be a good backup DT. And then the guy I'm most excited about is 1-year pro Vian Moala, 6'7", 315-pounder out of Utah. He's kind of the reason why we started moving pieces around and the loss of Emmanuel Ogbah. But last year at preseason he had 1.5 sacks and 3 tackles. I'm excited to see what he does for year 2. At the linebacker spots, starting at left outside linebacker is going to be Raekwon McMillan, one of our mainstays. At middle linebacker is going to be Jerome Baker and Lakia Henry. And then on the right side is going to be Merlin Robertson. So starting at left outside linebacker is going to be 5-year pro Raekwon McMillan out of Ohio State. 82 overall superstar. This guy is just fantastic. Finally made the Pro Bowl last year. He had 139 tackles, 15 TFLs, 3.5 sacks, a pick, and a forced fumble. I'm excited to see what he does this year as well. At right outside linebacker, we have 1-year pro superstar Merlin Robertson out of Arizona State. Kind of a second thought when we drafted him, but he really came into his own last year. He had 45 tackles, 13 TFLs, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. I'm excited to see him out there, and he might end up getting some rushing opportunities as well. At middle linebacker, we have captain 4-year pro Jerome Baker out of Ohio State. This guy is just phenomenal every time he played. Last year was a little bit of an injury-marred season, but he was still able to get 98 tackles and 17 TFLs. I'm really excited to have him as the middle linebacker. At the number 2 middle linebacker spot is going to be Lakia Henry, the 1-year pro out of Ole Miss. Another guy that just kind of came out of nowhere. He had 55 tackles, 7 TFLs, and half a sack. I'm really excited about him being number 2. Backing up those linebackers is going to be 3-year pro Andrew Van Ginkel. He's very good on special teams. He's excellent when he gets the opportunity to play. Last year, he had 16 tackles, 2 TFLs, and 1 sack in the preseason. Didn't really get the playing time that he needed in the regular season. And then the linebacker who actually stepped in last year when Baker got hurt is one-year pro Hamsad Nasirildeen out of Florida State. He looked really good when he got his playing time. He had 23 tackles, 1.5 sack, and a forced fumble. He might end up actually becoming a safety depending on his skills or not. And the one guy that I love, outside linebacker Bryce Sterk, the 2-year pro out of Montana State. He did end up getting some regular season action, which was great for him. He ended up getting 17 tackles and 2 TFLs. So he's exactly where I wanted him to be. He also had a great preseason with 5+ sacks, so good for him. And backing up at the middle linebacker position is 2-year pro Cale Garrett out of Missouri. Another guy that we picked up mid-season and ended up going on to the practice squad. But this guy has shown little brilliancies of domination during practice, so hopefully he's able to continue to contribute. At cornerback, we are pretty much stacked, with Xavier Howard being the number 1, covering those primary guys at 6'1", Jair Alexander number 2, Mike Hilton number 3, Avery Young number 4, and Jaquan Amos at number 5. Starting here with mainstay 6-year pro Xavier Howard out of Baylor. He's the number 1 guy. He's 6'1", so I think he's going to match up a little bit better than Alexander. But last year, didn't really go all in. He had 4 picks, 88 tackles, 8 TFLs, and 11 passes defensed. But those 4 picks came in the first 3 games, and then he was super quiet. And number 2 cornerback is going to be 4-year pro Jair Alexander out of Louisville. We ended up getting him in free agency away from Green Bay. He is another guy that hopefully can shut down the passing game. He had 2 picks, 87 tackles, 4 pass defense. I'm excited to have those 2 guys at the top of this cornerback. And then we have slot corner 6-year pro Mike Hilton out of Ole Miss, former starter. Maybe he was the problem, maybe not. Who knows? He had 2 picks, 100 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 10 pass breakups. Hopefully he's able to be an absolute monster as the slot, and we don't allow anybody to throw the ball against us. Then we have 1-year pro Avery Young out of Rutgers, 74 overall. This guy actually did very, very well in the slot. He did end up having 101 tackles, 5 TFLs, a half sack, and 8 pass breakups. He's got great speed, which could be what makes the difference as the slot cornerback. And then at the 5th cornerback position, we have 1-year pro Jaquan Amos out of Villanova. Another guy that kind of came out of nowhere. He didn't really see a lot of regular season action, but in the preseason had 10 tackles, 3 TFLs. Nothing too crazy, but he's a good mainstay. And then we have 7th round pick rookie Rowan Meredith out of Penn State. Kind of excited to see how he translates over, but last year in college he had 3 picks, 23 tackles, 3 TFLs, and 2 pass breakups. He has good speed and acceleration. What can you ask for? And then we also have 2-year pro Jalen Thompson out of South Alabama. This guy, every time he gets on the field, is excellent. Last year in preseason he had 2 picks, 20 tackles, and 2 TFLs. Kind of excited to see what he does again, and hopefully he's able to make this team. At the safety spots, I feel pretty comfortable with Minkah Fitzpatrick starting at free safety, and then Xavier McKinney starting at strong safety. Starting at free safety is Captain Minkah Fitzpatrick, 4-year pro out of Alabama. This guy is an absolute freaking stud. He ended up making the Pro Bowl, had 2 picks, 107 tackles, 10 TFLs, 9 pass breakups. I really kind of want to continue to move him around a little bit more, see if he's able to disrupt just a tidbit more. At strong safety, we have 1-year pro Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. Not exactly sure what happened with the defense, because after Rashad Jones was gone, this team has not necessarily looked the best. But last year he had 1 pick, 94 tackles, 10 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, and 6 pass breakups. Kind of excited to see what he does in year 2. And then backing those guys up, we have 7-year pro Bobby McCain, who is the captain of the special teams. He did not look great the playing time that he did get. He got 22 tackles, but he looked exposed over the middle, just giving up deep ball after deep ball. And because of that, we spent a second round pick on rookie Arsenio Shea out of Michigan. Just a guy that has an absolute motor, 86 speed. He had 4 picks, 52 tackles, 3 TFLs, 3 forced fumbles, and 6 pass breakups. This guy could be the backup to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then backing up the strong safeties is going to be second round pick rookie Quincy Shepard out of Virginia Tech. He was the first guy we picked this draft because we wanted some strong safety depth. He had 2 picks, 41 tackles, 8 TFLs, half a sack, and 5 pass breakups. He's got 90 speed, he's strong, should be very interesting to see how he performs. And then we took a developmental strong safety in the 4th round in rookie Dwayne Strickland out of Oklahoma State. Kind of excited to see how his skill set really revolves around the NFL level, but he had 2 picks, 68 tackles, 14 TFLs, 2.5 sacks, and 8 pass breakups. Let's see how he does in preseason. And starting at kicker is going to be 1-year pro Jet Toner out of Stanford. This guy was great. His leg maybe not the strongest, but he did hit 29 of 32 field goals for a 90% clip and a long of 54. Kind of excited to see what he does for an encore. And then at punter, we have 5-year vet Matt Hawk out of Arizona State. This guy continues to dominate the punting train as he had a 53.5 average, 43.5 net average, and 13 punts inside the 20. He does need to work on his accuracy. He had a lot of touchbacks last year. And so that's where we stand for getting into the preseason. Hopefully there's not too many injuries. But I will see you at the end of preseason. We'll go over our record, our wins, losses, our stats, and then anybody I'm going to cut or add to the team right before the regular season. So let's get through the preseason. And our preseason wraps up with actually a 26-0 loss to the Seahawks. But all in all, a pretty good season, or preseason I should say, as we did finish 2-2. We won our first 2 games, and then we lost our last 2. But our offense was actually 4th in the NFL, which isn't terrible. And then our defense was actually 8th. The only problem is our starters just couldn't seem to get any touchdowns. And our defense was only giving up field goals for the starters. And the 3rd game where they actually played the entire half, the starters just couldn't really get anything going. They did end up scoring 1 touchdown. So I'm still a little bit concerned about our offense. Our defense, is still kind of great, but we do have 1 injury to report. And that injury is to our starting left outside linebacker and our boy Raekwon McMillan, who is going to be out for 4 weeks for a shoulder tear. So he will be back for the majority of the season, but just another start of injury bug happening to us again. But Van Ginkel is actually going to get the start on the outside linebacker. He played a lot better in coverage than Nasir Dean, so I feel a little bit more comfortable starting him. But we also decided to change around our offense just a little bit as we ended up moving Darren Paulo over to right guard, starting Sidney Patrick, and moving Connor Williams into the center spot. But we do have a lot of trade offers for our line depth, and because I can't really keep all those guys, I can only really keep 3 backups. We're going to make a couple of trades here before week 1 and see if we can't get some draft capital in return, since we know they're already going to be taken from the practice squad. We are going to be sending Jeremy Shade, our left guard. We're just super full on that line for a 5th round pick from the Steelers, so I don't think it's a terrible, and we might be able to use that round 5 pick to possibly move up into a 3rd round. But more draft capital, the better. The Saints really wanted Joseph Collins, so we ended up getting a 4th round pick from them. Again, offensive line depth is not an area we need to really even worry about. Lucas Lloyd will be heading to Arizona for a 3rd round pick, but we also had to send a 7th round pick. But we moved up pretty good, and 3rd round picks are pretty good for us. The Cardinals also offered a good trade for Ben Jones as well. Connor Williams moving over to center. We don't really need Ben Jones anymore, so we send him and a 4th round pick to the Cardinals for a 2nd round pick and a 7th round pick. Again, draft capital is where we make our money. The Cowboys sent a good offer here, and we are going to be sending Josh Simpson to the Cowboys and a 5th round pick for a 2nd round draft pick from the Cowboys. Just a beautiful deal, I believe, for us, and Simpson really had no future with us anymore. The Broncos really wanted to get Ron Leary back. I don't think he really has a future since he's so old, but we ended up sending him and a 6th round pick over to the Broncos for their 2nd round pick. So that's 3 2nd round picks so far. So we made a huge deal here with the Texans as we sent Joey Zahn, Creed Humphrey, and a 5th round pick, and we ended up getting their 1st round pick, which is huge for us. But again, we don't really have any glaring needs. We're just looking for depth at this point. The Patriots were the only person to offer a trade for Bobby McCann, but it was for a 2nd round pick, and we ended up adding Castile as well. Again, another guy that probably wasn't going to make the team with our line depth, but we ended up getting another 2nd round in this upcoming draft. So now comes the fun part where we end up moving people to the practice squad or releasing them. Anthony Brown is going to go to the practice squad. Again, he had a great preseason, but he's probably not quite ready to be our backup quarterback yet, even though Tyree Jackson looked terrible. But we're going to give him another year on the practice squad, see if he develops a little bit. And Vian Moala will also be going to the practice squad as well. Again, he actually didn't really perform that well in the preseason this year, so we're going to move him to the practice squad. Patrick Laird, we are going to have to cut him. I love this guy to death, but his overall just isn't where it needs to be, and he's run out of practice squad eligibility, so let's end up cutting him. Deontay Swain, we are going to move him to the practice squad. He looked pretty good in preseason. Trey Ragas, we are keeping on the regular roster. I love this guy. I'm not going to get rid of him yet. Jalen Thompson's going to make the team. Patrick Taylor is actually going to get cut. Just not enough room for him. Jalen Tigg looked awesome, so he's going to make the roster. Chandler Gore is going to go to the practice squad. Where did Rowan Meredith go? He just kind of disappeared. Michael Dieter is going to be cut. I mean, 66 overall. We have so many good linemen now after that draft, so he is finally gone. He's no longer a Dolphin. Hazleton makes the team. AMJ makes the team. Jefferson makes the team. DJ Shark makes the team. Our 2 draftees at defensive end are going to go to the practice squad. Sean Foote and Mike Wright. Strong safety, we only need 2, so Dwayne Strickland is going to go to the practice squad as well. Quincy Shepard is going to be our primary backup. Chance Smith will also be going to the practice squad as well. He actually made a great catch in preseason, but I have so many really good wide receivers, and Damon Hazleton was an absolute stud. So Chance Smith is going to go to the practice squad as well. Cale Garrett played pretty well, but we have a lot of really good linebackers, so we're going to end up cutting him and sending him to the free agency market. Jaquan Amos was actually the guy that probably didn't perform the best out of Rowan Meredith and Jalen Thompson, so we're going to end up moving him to the practice squad. He's just really got to improve on that zone coverage, and he wasn't making tackles. They kept breaking it on him. So hopefully he's able to develop down on the practice squad. Jacki Polite was actually pretty good in the preseason, but he just kind of was getting destroyed during run plays. So we're going to have to end up cutting him and probably signing a right end in free agency. And then this stable of halfbacks, I was actually very disappointed in A.J. Dillon. He did very well when it wasn't a power situation, but as a power back, he was not performing whatsoever. So we're going to end up moving him to the practice squad as well and pretty much get him there, and hopefully he develops and give him another shot to overtake Trey Ragas as that power back. With all those cuts, we are going to sign left end Morgan Fox, get him back as our primary backup on the line. Love this guy. He deserves another chance. I just didn't really have the roster room after that huge draft. Ray Lima didn't really perform for us, so we are actually going to sign our DT number 2 in Linvale Joseph, the 12-year veteran out of East Carolina. 76 overall, scheme fit, star development. He's going to regress, but it is what it is. We need a DT number 2. We are also going to sign right end Josh Sweat, who's a 25-year-old, 4-year pro out of Florida State. Doesn't really fit our scheme that well, but he looks absolutely amazing. So we are going to sign him as our primary right end backup and see if he gets any playing time this year. So that's where we're going to wrap up this preview episode. And next episode, we're going to head into week 1 against the Jets, who pretty much did a very, very good job in the playoffs, ended up winning our division, so hopefully we can kind of beat them up a little bit, but we'll also get through week 2 against the Bengals and week 3 against the Vikings, and see how we do in our first 3 games, because this is kind of a make or break year for Brian Flores. We have to at least make the playoffs. Hopefully we're able to do so, but thanks again for watching, and as always, stay frosty, and I'll see you in the next episode. D.Knight out.
They thought it was a game till I came back with that win overtime. I've been working, now I'm back at it again. Now we finished what you thought that was the end.